Like they grew up in a generation where like that shit like it goes viral and it seems like we're all gonna fucking do this. We're all gonna fucking do this. And they all do it and it's just this big thing. And I almost feel like a lot of people think that that's the extent of what you have to do in order to make something happen. And so it's like they organize this big fucking thing and then it's just like, okay, we did it. And then like it's like counterintuitive and to think like, no, but you actually have to like still care about that shit. Well, see, after you've enjoyed the like virality of it.
Every time I think about the exact point that you're making right now, because I've had that exact thought.
Okay.
Because, you know, as a black person, I've seen a lot of niggas out there protesting the couple past few events, right? And you do wonder, all right, so what the fuck is supposed to happen next after you get everybody on the same page? And every time I have that thought, I blame it on myself. Because I didn't get up and go too. I didn't get up and try to find out what I could do. I feel like if everybody that felt something when they saw it, if everybody in the fucking world that has that thought, what do you do next? And they get up and actually try to go find out what do you do next, then everything will be solved.
Well, I think that entails the understanding that it's more than just that one thing. Like I think that you and I and maybe I don't want to speak for Eric, but like people of our generation in general that are a little bit older, we still are kind of in touch with the fact that like, yeah, we can all do this right now, but like I kind of sit back and watch it happen because I'm like, okay, great, you guys are all gonna fucking skip school and go do this big thing, but like I'm looking at it as like, yeah, I guess I could do that thing with you, maybe, but is that gonna really do anything? Like once you've all missed school for the day and you've done that shit, like is anybody still going to pursue? I think that's where it comes down. It wasn't just like Martin Luther King's movement. It wasn't just like one fucking march. It wasn't like one big thing. They were like, we're just going to do this one big thing and we're going to change the world because so many people saw how many people did this one thing one time. It doesn't work like that. And I think people aren't used to that because we exist in a culture where all you have to do is one thing, one time, and you're fucking popping for a week.
Well, dude, there was a time where black people, when they were going through all that shit, it was kind of clear. There was something that happened, and it made it kind of clear that everybody was on the same fucking page. This bullshit needs to stop. Because even the people that weren't getting up and helping out before were being like, I'm sick of seeing this shit on TV. Like, this is terrible. And then finally, it was kind of obvious everybody's on the same page. Let's change some of these fucking laws, right? Mm-hmm. But the people that's I would say that's opposite of the protesters, they still fucking exist. They're still out there, and then the numbers grow, but you're outnumbered. The reason why you feel like the school, the march thing that they're doing to try to change gun laws, you feel like they lost already because the people that are opposed that are greater fucking numbers, and they're all in charge of...
I feel like they lost it already because when I watched one particular video I saw where, first of all, you look at the video, and for the first time in my life, I'm looking at... Not for the first time, I've noticed this progressing over the course of the past couple of years, but like I'm looking at these high schools, I'm like, wow, these are kids. I feel like an adult, and I'm looking at kids doing some shit. And like, you look at everybody coming up the escalator, and everybody's got their phone out. Everybody's like going around the crowd like, wow, look at how crazy this shit is. This shit's so crazy. And like this one girl in particular, I saw her come up the escalator and she's like talking to her friend and like texting and stuff like that. And at the time, everybody in the crowd is just yelling, enough is enough, enough is enough. And this girl gets up to the top of the escalator and she just notices that everybody's yelling enough is enough. And then just that group of people just starts yelling, enough is enough, enough is enough. It's just like you just see these people come up and they just start, okay, this is what we're doing, enough is enough. But I wonder, is anybody really, how many people are actually there because they really think enough is enough? Or how many people are actually there just trying to be a part of something? And as soon as it's not something to be a part of, they're on to the next thing, just like they're on to the next song, just like they're on to the next meme, just like they're on to the next any fucking thing else, because nobody understands the concept of actually committing to any particular idea. Or it's just wild to me. It's just like I don't know if it's different now or if it's always been that way and we're just noticing it more because we're able to like observe it with the internet and stuff. I don't know. I just feel like there's a major disconnect with people between what they think is going to make a difference and what actually makes a difference. And That could be me just being old.
Well, no, I mean, dude, it's a hard fucking job to change people's mind for what you believe is the better is a hard fucking job, and most of the people in the world already have one.
Exactly.
They already have
Exactly.
a hard
Very
fucking
true.
job, so it's kind of hard to have two fucking hard jobs because while you're trying to help everybody, you lost your shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or it's less than it's half of what it was before. So and then you know that the other side is so strong that they could destroy that person in some kind of way.
But that is also
don't play fair.
evidence. In a way, you could observe it as evidence that maybe the shit isn't okay. So I'm just going to say this. This is just a thought that's coming through my mind. The fact that you already kind of have your shit going in your life. You already have your job. You already have whatever going for you. And so you're interested in the concept of going out and fighting for a cause or whatever like that. But ultimately, you already have your real job. Your job isn't to fight for that cause. That, in a way, is kind of evidence that maybe shit really isn't that as bad as they're making it seem, because you can look at a country that's actually like go to Venezuela, go to parts of Russia, stuff like that, countries that are North Korea, for instance, countries that actually their shit sucks. They want a real job. Their life fucking blows, and they have no choice to fight for this cause. They don't have the luxury of like, yeah, I'll fucking take a train down to the march and write a cool sign and hold it up and take a bunch of pictures for my fucking Facebook and Instagram and get a bunch of likes. But ultimately, I'm going to go back to my salary position.
But like that
dude,
doesn't mean that it can't be better here too.
I'm not saying it can't be.
But look, that's the thing. Like Dave Chappelle in his last special, he said, "It's always funny until it happens to you."
Yeah.
And that's the mentality that we all have about every issue in the world. As a human, I empathize with your issue, so I'm on your side. So I'm going to stand there, and yes, you're right. This needs to change, but it hasn't happened to me.
Yeah.
It happened to you, and I can't be here as much as you need to be here.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up. You ever go to a party and you just showed your face?
Yeah.
That's what people do. They just show their face, but they got to get back to their shit.
Well, that's
Because it really hasn't happened to them.
yeah, it hasn't, and that's the thing about the internet is like with Twitter, just whatever's trending for the day, it allows people to be quote unquote affected by shit that actually doesn't affect them.
yeah.
So they're able to sympathize with it and go through the motions of, like, I don't want to say pretending, because they might actually empathize with it in a way, but ultimately, like,
I can empathize with a picture of a friend being shot in the ass, right? I can feel the emotion.
yeah,
But if I was there when it happened, that's completely different. I remember the fire. You know what I mean? I remember the gunshot going off. I remember the sound. I remember you hitting the floor and starting to scream. I remember the blood pouring.
Yeah.
It's just different until it happens to you, man. Like so,
Yeah.
it's just like everybody's on the same page, man. But everybody can't afford to be that dedicated to one thing at the same time.
yeah.
Like, and because we're all so fucking fickle as people, we're not all going to be on the same page.
Because ultimately, like you said, we're concerned with our own fucking
Yeah, our
day-to-day
own
shit.
shit, yeah.
Like back in the '60s, like I'll use the example of the Million Man March again. Like those people, like the way shit was promoted and propagated back then, it was much more difficult to get the word out. You know, you had newspapers and shit like that. Like in order for somebody to organize that stuff, it must have been way fucking hard. Now you can send out a tweet, and if you have a bunch of followers, that gets retweeted. And now everybody fucking knows about it, and everybody's able to show up, and it opens the door for people who otherwise, if this was the '60s or something like that, would not have been there. So now you're able to get a crowd of much greater numbers, but perhaps much less substance, much less actual. Like maybe I don't know. I think it's a flaw in the logic that we're going, because I would like to see whatever. And again, look, my life, like I got my own fucking problems going, you know, and I think just like any other human being on the planet, like that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm focused on. Like, and so like I see the other shit going on, and the same way as you, I can observe it. I just don't go through the motions. Like I just like if I see something going, unless it's something that I really care about, I'm not gonna even. I honestly probably wouldn't even go down to a fucking march or something like that, even if I did care about it. but only because I don't have a real job otherwise. So like, I look at it as like, okay, so if I really care about something, I'll fucking talk about it on the podcast, or I'll fucking put it in my music or something like that. Like that's will be my contribution to it, at least in my head, even if it means nothing. But so, I don't know. I just think I just think mostly I'm getting fucking old.
Well, dude, here's what you realize. Here's what that means because you're getting old. We see this happen too many times. Like, our parents dealt with the shit. Their parents dealt with it from their time. Their parents dealt with whatever the fuck was going on. All the way back to it was plague. It was the plague killing motherfuckers. Like, to whatever the fuck. How we're gonna fucking get heat. This has been the longest fucking winter we've ever had. Back to when that was like the mass hysteria problem. There's always going to be something to fucking worry about. I think that's what getting old is.
We saw the fucking remember Coney 2012. Remember James Coney.
Yes. Fuck, I
Fucking
forgot
viral
about that.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Yeah, dude.
That's the whole point. Remember fucking 2012, fucking this video about how James Coney's doing all this terrible shit in Africa. He's a warlord, blah, 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 blah. And everybody's fucking talking about it on Facebook. Everyone's like, fuck James, or whatever. Like, all of a sudden, all these fucking white dudes in America all of a sudden care about what the fuck's going over there for a week. And now, it's 2018. James Coney might still be fucking running around doing the same shit he was doing.
He's probably got even more child
He's probably doing
soldiers
even
now.
fucking better. He got a bunch of publicity.
He got a
dude.
free campaign against him.
Yeah, exactly. He got a free campaign for him,
We need to
dude.
figure that out. We need to.
That was like
That's-
the first
That's our job.
one that I can remember being like,
I forgot all about that.
oh, everybody's just gonna fucking get all hype about something, and if any, it just never. What are we gonna do about it?
Yeah.
We've all proven that we're capable of showing up. Like when I went to Towson University, I tried to get the wrestling club off the ground, and the first day, the first practice we had like 60 people out, all these dudes that were Towson U that wanted to wrestle. But what happened was, we owed a whole bunch of money. We owe, the school wasn't going to let us compete because the club for the past like 3 years hadn't paid their dues or something. So when I got there as a freshman, they were like, okay, so you got to pay your dues for this semester as a club with a fundraiser, but you also have to pay back the debt that you owe for the past 3 years for shit that you weren't even here for. But like, if you want to actually be allowed to compete, you guys have to get back to even. And so you get a whole bunch of people out, and everybody wants to wrestle because that's what they're thinking. These are all dudes who wrestled in high school. They want to wrestle. They show up, and all of a sudden you have enough practice, a couple less people there, a couple less people there. All of a sudden, if nothing gets actually going, we've proven that there's a lot of people that are interested in wrestling. We've proven that there's a lot of people that are on campus that are like, oh, yeah, I'll fucking show up 6 to 8 and fucking go to practice. But the minute that you haven't established some sort of game where it's like, okay, well, we got a tournament next week. Okay, well, now we're going to fucking have weigh-ins. We're going to have wrestle-offs. We're going to see who's starting. If you don't have that shit in play, after 2 months, we were down to just me and 3 other dudes because we were the ones that actually really wanted to fucking get this shit off the ground, and everybody else just liked the idea of wrestling.
Well, can you say that maybe the problem is we haven't really figured out how to capitalize on people's attention spans while we have it?
Well, I think that's always been the case.
Because if you realize government and law shit is a long, drawn out process purposefully.
Yeah, purposefully. Because they understood that this is how people work.
Yeah.
They understood that we can't just have the way society is structured be decided by whatever people decide they gave a shit about this week. If it really matters, they will continue to give a shit about it. And they will go through the process and they'll make a change eventually. They understood how people work. People have always been that way. I don't think that we've lost touch with how to establish the ground game. I think we've lost touch with the importance of it. I think people legitimately don't understand that is a necessary aspect of actually changing because of the culture that we live in today, which is all about just popping off.
Yeah.
Just all of a sudden you're famous. You know, you're the Cash Me Outside bitch. You're the fucking Damn Daniel guy with the Vans. You're that guy. And now where the fuck's Damn Daniel? What are these, that's how we move now.
Yeah. So what if the slogan for everything now should be tragedy plus time equals no change? To make people say, once this shit is trending, we actually got to fix it before it's not trending anymore. What like if that's the pace that we are mentally moving at now, that's what we're conditioned to due to every goddamn thing we put in our faces.
Well, see
Then
that
everything else needs to speed up to that pace.
That could be dangerous, though, because then we're falling into the territory of any given thing that sets people off on any given day can direct the entire course of society, which is dangerous because a lot of these things need time to be sort of like when something happens.
It needed time because people needed to go back and look over other cases and do studies of how it evolved, how this place is going to react to this and all that. We have shit available to us now that will tell us all that at a way faster pace.
We do, but the debate. So, like for instance, we've had more terrorist attacks, and when I say terrorism, I'm talking about any like mass, like the Vegas thing and the school thing, and like so immediately the emotional response, and I'm not saying it's a wrong response or a right response. I'm just saying that the immediate knee-jerk response when a tragedy like this happens is something like, we need to ban guns. We need to get rid of them. We just fucking get rid of them. But then what you're doing is there is an entire, it's not, to me, and I think to a lot of people it could be, and maybe it is this simple, but to me, it's not that simple. And so if we start making moves like this, if we start, something happens, and we just make an abrupt, knee-jerk reaction to it that changes the entire course of the society we live in, then we're not actually existing in the society that was structured for us, which was, you need to take time to hear out all sides. We need to take time.
Think about this, because this is exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Our knee-jerk response is already a compromise. Because we're so used to shit not getting done, our knee-jerk response already is a compromise. Because like right now with that whole shit that happened in Florida, nobody's saying get rid of guns. They're saying get rid of fucking machine guns. These fucking horrible assault rifles that have no purpose other than to kill at a rapid pace. Nobody's saying take away guns. We used to say that and got shut the fuck down in record time.
I think there are people that...
Knee-jerk response is the compromise.
I think there are people that are saying that, first of all, machine guns particularly are already... You can't, like... Automatic weapons, you can't just fucking get you can't get a machine gun. They've been outlawed since '85, and so basically, any machine gun that was made after 1985 is illegal in America. And so the only machine guns that are in existence in America are grandfathered in essentially.
Right.
And then the process of getting one of those is like you can't just fucking get one. What they're talking about, the thing that he used for that, it was an AR-15, which is a semi-automatic, which essentially fires at the same rate as a handgun, but it's a rifle.
Right.
It's just a fucking boom, boom, boom. It's not a fucking.
Okay.
That's not what he was doing.
So, but still,
Yeah, it's still
the
scary.
pace that has is
scary.
pretty fast. So let's say, what if the argument is not get rid of all guns? What if we specifically said, let's get rid of AR-15s? Clearly, we have a motherfucking problem with that guns because everybody else is running up into public places with this particular assault rifle and are killing people.
Yeah,
Which
I think that
really-
was like the Orlando nightclub. I think that was
Yes.
an AR-15. I think was Newtown an AR-15 too, maybe.
Well, then it
remember
begs
that.
the question, and this would just be the natural reaction, is that, so let's say we decide that we're going to get rid of AR-15 specifically. They're now banned in the United States.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, is that going to prevent an incident like this from ever happening again?
But here's the thing. We've had, I think I saw 8. We've had 8 times to test that theory out already. That particular gun, if I'm not mistaken, had been used in 8 different occasions. So, what are we waiting for? This is life. We could just try shit, and if it don't work, we'll fucking undo it. That's just how this shit works. Who's losing money? The gun people?
Well, here's
The people
the
that
one,
manufacture fuck them.
The one flaw I would say in the logic that you presented is that if it doesn't work, then you said, well, undo it?
We'll go back. We'll
Because
give them
what I
back their
think will
guns.
happen is we'll go further. And so what'll happen is we'll ban AR-15s. Now, let's not even discuss the point that if you ban AR-15s, that's actually going to prevent somebody who really wants to do
No,
that from...
because then there'll be another gun. And then
Exactly.
We ban that gun.
And then you'll ban that gun. And then you'll ban that gun. Then you'll ban that gun. And so ultimately, it's a slippery slope argument, which is understanding the fact that maybe it's not
The bullets will get slower, and the people will get faster.
So we're just going...
There's going to be a medium.
So
Maybe
we're just-
cyborgs at that point.
So essentially, when you say that the knee-jerk reaction is already a compromise, that's why I would disagree with you, because what I'm looking at it as is, no, right now it appears as a compromise, but what you're setting the precedent for is you're saying that we're going to solve this problem by eliminating the object that people are using to cause it. And so once that object is eliminated, people are going to acquire another object to do it. And then if we're going to work off that same premise every time we address a situation, we've set the precedent that we're going to get rid of that. Then ultimately what we're talking about is just a ban on all guns.
Well, riddle me this, friend. Riddle me this. What drug that was legalized, made illegal in, I think, the fucking 60s, that is becoming legal now?
Weed?
Yes.
Or you
Okay.
could even just say like alcohol prohibition too. Like
It has happened.
Well, the
The
reason...
60s to now, 70 fucking years.
But think
it
about-
took 70 years to undo some of that bullshit.
But why did alcohol prohibition get started in, like, let's say 1920 something, and within like 2 or 3 years it was undid? Why was it undone? Because they realized that banning alcohol didn't stop people from drinking. It caused this illegal black market of alcohol to then overrun the prisons. Now there was all these fucking mobs and gangs running around with the speakeasies and shit like that.
But it still
That's why
slowed
weed is
down
big.
that problem.
That's why. But would you argue that for weed? Because people outlawed weed for whatever reason. I don't even know why they outlawed weed. But what did outlawing weed do? It caused the prison populations to go way up. We did the mandatory minimums, which caused people to be incarcerated for carrying around a fucking plant. Yeah. And then people started to wise up and be like, first of all, anybody that wants to smoke weed has not smoked weed because it's illegal. Like weed is.
But you do know why it was like they made it easy for that to happen, because the severity of breaking that law, like they made it so that if you were caught with weed, they tried to keep you for years of your motherfucking life.
yeah, you were fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But why did they do that? Because they were trying to
incarcerate people
Sure.
for a lot longer than
Sure.
they need to be.
So let's say
Keep
in a
them off the
hypothetical
street.
situation that they do the same thing with guns or something like that. Does anyone under the impression that it's not just going to lead to a massive incarceration of all kinds of fucking people that otherwise
why
should have
the
been
fuck-
incarcerated?
Who would be incarcerated? Think of the type of people that, if that was the case, think of the type of people that would be incarcerated.
Probably my dad, my uncle, me. Because I tell you what, if they banned all guns, I wouldn't.
You're not giving it up?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
It's in his trunk, dude.
So here's the
just
thing.
wouldn't.
So here's
And
the
there's
thing.
a lot of law-abiding people. There's a lot of law-abiding people that would never, ever use that for harm, that would not give it up out of principle, because they're looking at it from a constitutional perspective, which is, people laugh at this argument. People legitimately laugh at the argument that the reason why, I mean, think about it. This is
Well, before you make that point, I don't believe that every gun that was purchased to cause harm.
absolutely not. Of course, the 98% of guns that are purchased are not purchased to kill somebody.
So
probably.
shit fucking
least
happens.
legally.
Shit fucking happens. It's the same thing with church. I hate to even bring this into it now, but there are people that have changed lives in churches, and there are people that has destroyed lives in churches. Everything can be used in a malicious way. Every tool can be used in a malicious way.
But what was the First Amendment? The First Amendment was that the government does not have the right to decide which ideologies and what systems of beliefs are appropriate or are dangerous or anything like that. you have a freedom of speech, you have a freedom of religion, you have a freedom of expression. You have the freedom to decide for yourself what you want to abide by and what you want to believe and what you want to say. That was the First Amendment. The Second Amendment, which, I mean, maybe they just fucking wrote down the amendments and then put it in a randomizer process and they just go, oh, well, now this is the Second Amendment. But to me, it's like, okay, so now we have the second most important thing that they listed out of this list of 10 things that they said human beings in this country have the right to do. The second most important thing was the right to bear arms, and the expressed reason for that. And look, like I said, everybody laughs at this, but you have to address it because this was something that was addressed back then, and there has to be a reason for that. There was a reason for that because these dudes had just gotten done fighting a tyrannical government to start the United States. They had just gotten out of a revolutionary war. This isn't a joke to them. To us, it's a joke because we exist in a society where we can't imagine our government oppressing us. But we act like because we exist in that society that it's somehow not feasible. Look around the world. Look at shit going on right now. This isn't a fucking fantasy land that, oh, well, we're America. That can't happen to us. I think that those are the ones that are naive. Now, I'm not saying that every human being should be allowed to fucking own a machine gun or a tank or fucking hand grenades and stuff like that, because obviously you have to draw a line at some point.
You do. So the point is, the line has to just get just a little bit longer.
And so with that progression of thought, I guess what I was getting at is that if we set the precedent, because it's all about setting precedents, just like the same reason why so many people were up in arms about the idea of making it illegal to misgender somebody or something like that. Why? Not because the majority of people, if you told me, hey, Jimmy, my name's Valance, I identify as a woman, address me as she, or address me as Z, or whatever the fuck pronoun that you want to be addressed by. That's not, I would do that. I think most people would just do that because it's not, if nothing else, just because it's not worth going through the trouble of not doing that and just being a dick.
Dude, if you had a concealed weapon on you, I'm black. I've been in many rooms with people with guns, right? If you had a concealed weapon on you, and you're just like, dude, like this doesn't bother you, do it? Like you still want to hang? Like, yeah, man, I'm chilling. I'm gonna hang out with you.
Yeah.
But if you got a fucking AR-15, I'd be like, nah, son. I'm going home.
Obviously.
Because you don't need all that, man.
The point,
take the space and time for it.
Yeah, you're right. The point I was making is that the reason why so many people fought and still continue to fight against the idea that you can make it a crime to you can actually make it a criminal offense to be compelled to say something that you don't necessarily want to say, or maybe let's say you don't actually believe, and I'm not saying my opinion, I'm just saying what if you're of a religion or something like that, like you're Muslim or you're Christian, evangelical Christian or something like that, and you don't believe that you are a woman by just saying that you're a woman, and now there's a law that says that if you refuse to align yourself with that ideology, that you can actually be criminalized for it. Once you've set the precedent for that, it's not so much that. It's that we have now set a precedent that says that our beliefs and our judgment on how shit should be supersedes the idea that everyone should be allowed to have their own individual rights. And so once you've set the precedent that you can put somebody in jail for saying this, that, the other thing, there's nothing stopping you from saying you can be put in jail for saying this, that, and the other thing over here. And so once the same thing that you were saying about banning one specific gun, once you've set the precedent, the way we're going to deal with the problems that exist in our society is by banning this one specific thing, then you've essentially set the catalyst for just the eventuality is that it will all be banned. And so that's what people are fighting against.
Here's the thing. If that's what you're fighting against, right? What's your worst outcome? The government takes everything from us, right? They take our fighting chance to defend ourselves, and they turn back, and they're like, gotcha, and they start coming for us, right? Mm-hmm. Then we go to fucking war, right?
With what?
We're creative as fuck.
We're gonna fucking throw rocks at them like they do in Iraq?
Dude.
Like, what are you fucking gonna do?
There'll still be guns. There's still, like you just said, weed's illegal. We smoke weed. I've seen a lot of weed in my lifetime before it became legal. You find ways. Like you said, there's ways to get machine guns in here. We always find a way, right? We might get fucked up at first. We might get, that first blow is going to hurt like shit. But we
Dude, but
always
then
will
ISIS is
fight.
gonna come through and be like, "We got your back."
Here's the thing.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. You're kind of disproving.
But I'm saying,
point.
but that if that's worst case scenario, my point of asking all that, if that's worst case scenario, there's a lot of people that feel like they're already going through that now,
Okay.
right now.
But what you just said was essentially that when shit hits the fan, we're going to find a way to get the things we need to do what we need to do. So that same argument, not applied to some hypothetical future situation, could be applied to right now. And you could say, if somebody wants to shoot up a school, they're going to find a way to get the thing that they need to get to do that, in the same way that if the government became tyrannical and we needed weapons to fight back, we'd find a way,
Dude,
regardless of the legality of it or regardless.
Dude, if there's a drug that's making you lose your fucking mind in the street, right? You are butt ass naked, running around. You're hot. You're sweaty. It's you're losing your fucking mind, right? It's illegal, but it's still gettable, right? But then there's a drug that makes you eat other people's faces, right?
Yeah.
You can't find that shit.
I mean, you could.
You could find it, but it's a
could
lot
find it.
harder than the other shit. It's a lot harder than
Because
marijuana.
it doesn't even sound appealing. Why
don't-
would you want
so
to do that drug?
my thing is, it's your if it's your right to participate whatever drug you want. There's lines that are drawn because this drug that you're taking, that you have the right to take, is affecting me. So I have to change this. It's only when your shit affects me, shit has to be changed.
And I
dude.
agree that shit has to be changed. But what I would say is that for me, I'm looking at it as a common denominator type situation. So the fact
But
of the
at
matter
the same
is,
time, once again, I'm not saying get rid of all guns.
I understand. What I'm getting
I
at,
wouldn't leave you defenseless. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't leave you defenseless, but those bullets gotta slow
what I'm
down.
getting at is that we are experiencing right now in the world as a whole, not just in America, we're experiencing a level of this shit happening that is unprecedented. We haven't seen this stuff happening at this rate. I mean, you got people blowing up concerts in Europe, people running over people in crowds in cars and shit like that. AR-15 it's been around since probably the 70s, 80s, something like that. Machine guns have been around forever. Automatic weapons have been around forever. If you're trying to observe the trend switching recently there is a upward trend of this kind of shit happening. It doesn't correlate with the availability of these weapons. It correlates with something else. I think that okay, assuming that the ban on a specific weapon would solve the problem, would be saying that, okay, so we're observing the trends over time, and the minute this weapon became available, all of a sudden all this shit started happening. That's not the case. There's something else going on in the country, in the world right now, that is causing people to have the desire to utilize whatever things are at their disposal to inflict that much pain and horror upon other people. Those are things that when I go through Facebook and I see these things where like people are like, and first of all, everything gets embedded in race and stuff like that. And sometimes I think it's kind of counterproductive because, like, for instance, this kid, he's 19 years old, and everybody's going like, people say his mother died and his dad died and this, that, the other thing, and like, can we talk about how maybe this has something to do with like the parental influence and stuff like that? And so many of my friends on Facebook, first of all, a lot of them are like, when it was a black kid that was 13, he was charged as an adult, but when all of a sudden when it's a white kid and he's 19, all of a sudden we're talking about maybe him being a broken child. I get that, but I think that takes us away from the ultimate goal, which is to understand that this kid was doing something, and so many people were going to write it off as like, fuck the whole parental situation, fuck his social influences. There's no justifying the mind of a mass murderer. Well, you can't just write these people off as insane, because what happens is people see something they don't understand. I can't comprehend, I can't conceive of wanting to go and do that. It's so foreign to me that I just write it off as lunacy. It's just insane. Yeah. But the problem with that is that if we don't take the time to actually observe the influences in his life that caused him to do that, then we're setting ourselves up for it to happen again. What we need to do is...
That's the same thing. All right. What you're saying now, as far as we need to address it so it doesn't happen again...
I think that's the main issue.
For sure. But we ain't going to figure that shit out overnight. This gun shit we can figure out overnight. It's like fucking steroids. They took steroids out of sports because it was an unfair fucking advantage for the next guy to give it all he got.
Yes.
There are some guns that are fucking steroids. And only a coward would need something that's much bigger than yours to go against you. How about you have the same tools that I have and we figure this shit out? I'm going to be better at you. Somebody got to be better. That's just the way it works. You can't get this extra shit to make you better. I'm just saying they just asking for a fucking even playing field.
I'm scared personally that what we are addressing, we're going too far down the wrong rabbit hole, I think. Because what I think is going to happen is that we probably will have some type of sweeping, super progressive gun legislation, possibly. And I think what we'll notice is that it probably will not stop the trend of what's happening right now, because it probably will not stop. It only takes one person. It only takes one dude who finds a way to get this weapon, and he can do the same shit that this kid did, whether he got it legally or not. It only takes one dude. It's not, I mean, there's 330 million people in this country. It takes one guy to find a way to get a gun, and trust me, it's not that fucking hard. It's not that fucking hard. And he can do it, and he's going to do it, and it's going to keep happening. And I think what I'm scared of is that we're not addressing what's actually causing it. We're addressing what they're using to cause it, but we're not addressing what's causing it.
All right,
What is
so
happening?
If you're taking a bunch of medications, right, and you have a side effect, but you're taking 5 different medications, right? They're not going to say, let's stop taking this one. They're going to say, let's stop taking them all.
Yeah.
And slowly add back and figure out what's actually fucking you up, right?
Sure.
That's what you got to do with guns, and that's not even what we're asking to do. Instead of saying, "Well, let's just stop taking them all until we diagnose what's happening here," you know what I'm saying? Like until we diagnose what's happening, that's a good enough reason to let's slow this down so you can have your guns back. Mm-hmm. We need to know what the fuck is going on, because people are getting shot in places they shouldn't get shot at by these insane weapons. So let's just slow this down until the doctors get. Your human brain is a more complicated process than the laws of government. So just give it a little fucking time. And you have laws and you have clauses in place that could assure that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There's no, let's take it away and I'll give it back. Sure, I will. And then you could put shit in place to make sure if you don't come up with an answer, you can't just keep it from us. Here
is and the quick rebuttal to that, but I don't want to dwell on this at all. The quick rebuttal to that would be my opinion would be that the war on guns will be no more effective than was the war on drugs. In fact, it could make it worse.
But the war on drugs wasn't just a war on drugs. In my eyes, the war on drugs was also a war on black people.
Fair. I mean, what makes you think that the war on guns wouldn't be the same?
Because
they'll find a way. Because
people are taking AR-15s and shooting up hoods often. And that shit ain't on the fucking news. That's why. It's not a big deal until it happens somewhere it's not supposed to happen, like a school or a fucking movie theater.
Bingo. And people were fucking being junkies on the street, and though I would argue that the war on drugs really started to take effect, and that's why the heroin epidemic. I mean, if you're going to take if you're going to take the approach that is a racial thing, which the heroin epidemic is receiving so much attention because it's affecting everyone. The crack epidemic didn't receive as much attention. The argument there is because it mainly affected black people, and so the government didn't care. But then so with heroin, with that, how we've cracked down on that, because it was affecting people that weren't black, let's say, it is subsequently wound up affecting everyone. Right. Like the laws that were put in place simply because now we have to address it because now it's affecting white people. But the laws that were put in place are having a negative effect on not just white people, they're having an effect on everybody. So this gun thing Yeah, Baltimore was just named the fucking most dangerous city in the country the other day, and
But you know why that happened? Because before those laws came into place, we made a bunch of laws that said you have to rule us under the same laws as you rule everybody else. Because we didn't have that at first either. So when we finally said, if this is my law, that's your law too. So, yes, then they came for us and it was like, fuck. Some good whites are getting caught up in this storm. Some good whites are getting caught up in this bullshit. We didn't want that to happen.
Here's what I'm saying. I think that if I were to try to narrow it down to what is actually the trend that is causing this, I think that our country is divided right now to a level that it hasn't been in a very long time.
And also, let me take that back. It's not just a black thing. It's not just a racial thing. It's a class thing. It's
I think I agree with that. I think it's
Definitely
more
poverty.
class than racial. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that the mistake when I hear the racial argument, the one thing I want to say is that I think that there's kind of this assumption that there's these white people at the top that really legitimately give a shit about the fact that you're black and they want to keep you down versus ultimately the white people at the top or whoever's at the top, they're concerned about doing what's best for them, and they don't care if the people they're keeping down are white or black or Asian or Mexican or whatever.
Then here's what I have to ask you, sir. If everybody has their own way of living, and you have people that are just gun enthusiasts that believes that if you give them an inch, they'll fucking take a mile. If you have people that live by that shit, why is it so hard to believe that there might be people that's like, I love to see niggas not doing well? Why is that so far-fetched?
Because
Especially when something called slavery existed. Now let me give it to you this way. All slaves weren't fucking black. There were other fucking, races that were slaves. But the people that enslaved them were like, I don't want you to succeed. You're not going to succeed. In order for me to succeed, I need you to stay below me. That's the whole king and queen process. That's the only way that works, is if everybody else in the fucking kingdom knows that they're below me. There are people that have lived that way for centuries. As much shit we're trying to change now, there are still some people that still want to live that way.
I agree with you on that. I really do.
So let's just say that some of those people that live that way might be in a very important place in life as far as like the money they're making, the companies that they're owning, and the influence that they have over other people. Everything can be bought. There's nothing that can't be sold in this world.
I think it reminds me of a quote, Ben Franklin. He said everything pretty much. Him and Mark Twain pretty much like locked up all the quotes for like the past couple centuries.
For sure.
But he said when you give up your freedom for security, you end up with neither.
For sure.
And so what I took from that is in New York, they got a lot of press for doing that stop and frisk shit, which is a blatant encroachment on the constitutional right of illegal search and seizure. You can't just stop me on the fucking street and search me just because I look like I might potentially be doing something illegal. You can't just do that. That's one of our constitutional rights, is that we don't give the government the power to play that role in our lives.
Well, if there was less guns, do you think we would even have a stop and frisk thing?
Well, first of all, I mean, I will say this. You think the majority of the guns that are found in these stop and frisk things are the majority of guns that are used in the shootings in Baltimore or any fucking murders? You think the majority of those guns are legally bought? Fuck to the fuck no.
Fuck no.
So the whole argument of what the gun laws are is going to somehow curb the drug violence in any inner city or anywhere else, that's already fucking gone. The only argument what I'm getting at is that I don't know, man. I guess I just kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, if things are so crazy that there's a stop and frisk law, this is why I keep asking, what's your worst case scenario? Your worst case scenario is when you stop and frisk a motherfucker, they got a gun.
Yeah. Sure.
That's what the fuck they're looking for. They don't really care about drugs. Fucking guns is where the charges are.
What they're looking for is prosecution of any type. When they stop and frisk you, they find drugs, they find guns, they find fucking whatever, dude.
But fucking guns is easy paperwork.
Yeah. And so
It's
that's
easy paperwork.
And so when you give
Automatic
up,
5
when you
years
create,
in Baltimore.
when you create more laws, when you create more restrictions on the public, all you're doing is giving the government more opportunities to lock your ass up. That's all you're doing, and they will do it because that's how that system works. We talked about it. Actually, last time you were here was a time when I was talking about the whole the parking garage thing. Remember that? I was telling you a story about me breaking the parking garage barrier.
Yeah.
We were talking about all that shit, and we were talking about how the justice system fuels on itself. If I didn't do something bad that caused a cop to investigate me, which then caused me to go to court, which then caused the judge to have something to do during her workday, that bitch wouldn't have a fucking job.
Yeah.
That is their job.
Yeah.
Their job is to find shit to charge people with, because if people aren't committing crimes, then guess what? Police officers don't have jobs.
Yeah.
Judges don't have jobs. Lawyers don't have jobs. That's what they need. And so when you continue to create more restrictions on the public, all you're doing is giving them the opportunity to fuel their self-sustaining system. And it never happens. Tyranny, when you look at how like Nazi Germany fell into shit, or Soviet Russia, or North Korea or anything like that, it didn't happen by this blatant, just somebody stepped up and said, all of a sudden you have no rights. People don't work that way. You can't just look at somebody and be like, you're fucked now, bro. Could be like, well, fuck you, dude.
But
I have rights.
They did it though.
How they did it?
They did it.
Was they did it through a slow and unsuspecting process of slowly taking people's rights away by slowly convincing that they didn't need those rights. Those rights were dangerous until they were completely enveloped.
How they did it was bringing niggas over to America from fucking Africa.
That wasn't the beginning of it. It's been going on for millennia.
And there were guns then too.
Sure, but that's what I'm saying.
So I'm saying if
it didn't start there.
If someone has the mental mind frame to think it's cool to do that shit, motherfuckers are capable of anything. So you have to have something in place to put us all on an even playing field. Because there are some people that has the balls to go above and beyond and demolish you. There just has to be something in place.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. Do laws put us on an even playing field?
Fuck no. No, it don't.
Then what are we talking about then?
We're talking about
how are you saying?
We're talking about the first steps of a process. If black people felt like some of the shit they were changing was going to be the be all end all, they'd have been super fucking disappointed 12 million times over. It was constant fucking work. It just had to fucking start somewhere, dude. And we still getting our asses handed to us. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you already know, dude, nobody in the near future can fuck with your guns. But the process to find out what the fuck is happening, what's going on, how can we slow this down, has to start somewhere.
I think that I've observed some positivity. I think that the fact that the government is actually taking action, like it seems like and this I almost feel like it's kind of dangerous too, because it seems to me that Trump is kind of like going and having like a commission and trying to figure this shit out.
We should definitely work in both angles though.
What do you mean both angles?
We shouldn't be arguing the angles. We should be working on both.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
As far as mental health and the gun laws.
Yeah.
We should be just working on both of them.
And
right
so
now.
the Republican side is they're talking. If you have to categorize it, which unfortunately it just is categorized that way, the right is saying it's a mental health problem, and the left is saying it's a gun problem. Yeah. And so when the president is having this commission to try to figure out shit, I think that should be received as some level of positivity. I think the fact that we're observing that kind of I think the fact that every single thing that happens is is cast in this like kind of like miserable fucking negative light I think that's causing the mental health issues. I think that we are becoming more and more divided because first of all, no matter what, in my opinion, no matter what I haven't seen one thing, and maybe it just is the case that everything Trump does is the worst fucking thing ever. But it seems to me that every fucking thing he does, even if it's something that seems to be along the lines of what people would want, like having a hearing and commission and having like a study on what's causing this gun violence, that shit is met with such fury that it doesn't even allow us to ever see eye to eye on anything because we're constantly.
Well, let me ask you this then. This might be where some of the fury comes from. Let's say we do just say it's a mental health thing. We need to figure out what's up, right? Mm-hmm. Once we find out everything we need to know about finding a person that's capable of getting a gun and misusing it, right? If we find out what that is and why that's happening, what happens after that? A law has to be set in place to make sure that these crazy fuckers aren't getting those weapons. So my question is, if it's that simple, why doesn't it already exist? Because clearly the crazies exist because the shit keeps happening.
Yeah.
So why doesn't that law already out there making it harder for those fuckers to get it?
Well, sure, but what I'm saying is I don't think it's any particular person's fault for that. I think
so then what are we studying?
What do you mean, what are we studying?
If it's no particular person's fault. I'm sorry, do you mean as far as the laws are concerned or as far as the mental health issues?
I'm saying that this country's existed for 250 years. And it's been through a slew of Republican presidents and Democratic presidents and Democratic majorities and Republican majorities in Congress.
I never concerned myself with any of the parties.
Exactly.
I've always just been like, problem, solution.
We need to, exactly. We need to stop looking at it from our side versus their side. It's almost like literally the same way people argue like Democrat versus Republican shit. It's almost like the same way people argue like Ravens versus Steelers shit. So no matter what the
like
Steelers do, we're gonna fucking hate
women
them.
Versus men.
It's just we have to realize
there's no way to win that fucking argument. It's no point.
No.
We have to recognize that we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
We all observe the same issue. Trust me, there's no one out there. There's no sensible, logical person out here that isn't noticing that this shit is fucked.
Yeah.
The only difference is we disagree on the solution. We don't disagree on the problem. We all agree that there's a problem.
True.
And the fact that we disagree on the solution makes people think that the other side just doesn't care. Or the other side just they're selfish or something like that. It's not like that.
Well, here's the problem with having parties, and two of those parties being the main focus. Everything's so goddamn black and white, not racially, just the color balance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're either for it or against it, or you either want this to be how we deal with it, or you want that to be how we deal with it. Where are the other fucking options? Why do you keep throwing things in twos and making us fucking choose?
Because the party system and people don't. And I think people were first woken up to this with what happened to Bernie. And what they realized was, I remember I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was like blown away at the concept that the primary election, that the party itself, they have what in the Democratic Party specifically, they have what's called superdelegates. So they do a popular vote to figure out who's going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party or Republican Party. They both have a primary election. And in both of those parties, they have these party officials. In the Democratic Party, they're called superdelegates, and the Republicans are called something else. But their votes count for far more than the popular vote. So, for instance, Bernie Sanders essentially kind of almost won the popular vote, and you could even argue that maybe he was robbed of it. But the party itself won Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton won pretty much all of the superdelegates, and that's what pretty much got her the nomination. And so that was the first time people really understood that, like, these parties aren't for you. The Republicans are not for you. The Democrats are not for you. They're private organizations. If I started a party tomorrow and said that we're going to decide our nominee for president by who can beat me in an arm wrestling match, that's perfectly legal. There's no democracy in the Democrat election. There's no democracy in it's a party, and they're concerned with their shit. The Republicans didn't want Trump to win. The Republicans fucking hated Trump. They did everything they could to get Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or fucking, Marco Rubio and all these other dudes to their fucking puppets. In the same way the Democrats had Hillary Clinton. She was kind of their puppet in a way. And Bernie was like this guy that was really resonating with the actual left in this country.
So how do we stop that? How do we make sure that the people that we elect are actually going through the process that we want them to go
Because
through, and not with a group of
we
that,
stop
that
it
party
by
want them to
we
go
stop it by discontinuing thinking of government in terms of Republican and Democrat, because I think that people legitimately think that the Republicans and Democrats are the government. They're not.
yeah.
The Republicans and Democrats are essentially AT&T and Verizon
Right.
vying for your phone service.
Right.
They're competing against each other. They're not the telephone lines. They're people that are controlling your telephone lines.
I don't think there's a lot of people that would be shocked to hear that.
There's not a lot of people that'd be shocked to hear it, but there's a lot of people that live by it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that live. Most people live by this idea that it's our side versus them. And the minute you live by that, then all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm Republican. So what do Republicans think? Republicans are pro-life. Republicans are pro-gun. Republicans are this, that, the other thing. Democrats are pro-choice. They're anti-gun, I guess, the party platform. They're all this shit. And so you pick a side, essentially, and that side's platform, even though you might disagree with certain aspects of it,
But dude,
you compromise yourself.
Anybody that's anti-gun?
Well, I was using that as an example. I'm talking about just the idea that these parties in their individuality stand to create this chasm in society where it makes us, instead of thinking critically about every individual issue, we start to lump certain opinions with a certain side. And so when you take a certain side, then all of a sudden it controls the way you think about everything. There's no kind of room in the political like identification to be, I mean, there is room to be this way, to be like, I'm pro-choice, but I'm also pro-gun. Like, I agree with the Democrats on this, and I agree with the Republicans on this.
Yeah.
But because of the way our government's set up, or not the way our government's set up, because of the way our government has become infiltrated by these two major parties, it forces people to have to polarize themselves like that.
Right.
And so there's no room for people to meet in the middle and say, okay, here's the issue we have right now. We have an issue
But does it force it, or are we just complacent? Are we just playing along?
It's forced upon us. It's not the way it has to be. But I mean, you know how it is, dude. I mean, you fucking go to the fucking voters box, and you vote for, like, if you vote people vote third party, but it's the stigma about voting for a third party in this country is a waste of a vote.
Right.
That's how it's thought of, and that's what it truly is, because the majority of people don't think outside of those two boxes. The majority of people think in terms of Republican versus Democrat. And so even if you do happen to be the critical thinking type of person that's going to say, well, this guy is a fucking libertarian, or this guy's a fucking Green Party, or something like that, I'm not going to waste my vote. Here's how people think about it. If I vote for, like, for instance, when Bernie lost the independent nomination, or when Bernie lost the Democrat nomination, I was thinking, why doesn't he just run independently? He has enough people. He has enough of a base that he could make a solid stance in the presidency running independently. But why? Why was he told not to? Because, well, then all you're doing is taking votes away from Hillary, and that's going to make the Republicans win. And so that's how we think. We immediately revert to...
Yeah, it's literally a game that you have to play to be a part of it. You don't always necessarily agree with the rules, but you have to fucking play it to be a part of it. And clearly, like, it's like women, man. I compared to women. I think most women have a game for you, right? And
most people have what?
Most women have a game for you. Well, most people have a game. Let's not just sexualize it. And it's up to you to figure out whether you want to play that game or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you worth the game? Are you worth the game? And depending on what you're playing for, you figure out if it's worth it or not.
Sure.
And that's what a lot of fucking people are doing. Like, that's just the standard. But you could always you go other places where you go to fucking, what is it? Goddamn, I forgot the country. But you go places where prostitute's legal and there's no game. You know what I'm saying? Ladies are just like, you know, I'm not a whore, but if you want to fuck, let's fuck. Because pussy is too free around here, and people are getting it too casually. For me, I know that you're not going to go with my game. So I had to have a different approach. Mm-hmm. So we just got to get everybody on the same page to not play the fucking game.
Well, that's the same thing. I mean, you could even draw it back to the whole, like, the college thing even. Like, we've kind of fallen to this place where our generation perceives as college as one of the, like, that's like how, you, like, even if it's not necessarily in your path.
best interest to go to college.
It's kind of
It
like,
was put
well,
into your head that
exactly.
our entire fucking lives. I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in 85. That was the only way out. You know what I mean? Even though black people were being successful in sports and basketball, and sports and basketball, sports and rap. You know what I'm saying? Like, you still felt like you had to try college.
And what happens is when those industries, and this is not, I mean, I like capitalism. I'm a big fan of capitalism. I know a lot of people, it's in vogue to be like not capitalist. But what happens is these people don't understand that and people understand it. But again, people understand it, but they don't live by it. People understand the fact that colleges are private. They make money. They're for-profit institutions. It's in their best interest to convince an entire generation of people that you have to come here. This is your best foot forward. Even if it's not your best foot forward, even if going X amount of dollars into debt is not your best foot forward for whatever career path you're trying to travel, they will I guess what happens is, in the same way that the Democrats understand that if they, and the Republicans as well, these private parties are doing the same thing that colleges are doing, or any other private institution, which is maximizing their own self-interest. Maximizing their own self-interest at the expense of you.